Okay.
So Autumn is spunky.
Spunky.
How else would you describe Autumn?
Autumn is
Creative.
yeah, definitely creative. She has good
She's compassionate.
innovative skills. Yes, she definitely has compassion.
She makes sure that nobody feels left out. I think she makes sure other people feel welcome in the class that may not feel as welcome.
Those are good traits.
Yeah.
And Autumn is 11, right?
Yes.
Okay.
She's 11.
About to be 12.
About to be 12. Okay. And when is about? When?
Not till March 5th.
March. Oh, okay, we're rounding a little bit there, but that counts. That's fine.
Year and a half. She's,
So Autumn is big sister.
yes.
And let's introduce baby sister, who's not a baby. Tell us a little bit about Adelyn.
A little girl that is determined to defy the odds. A story that never gets old with the conversations we have, and this one will leave an impression on you. My name is Seth Carnell, and this is the Go Shout Love podcast. Adelyn is our featured kiddo of the month and is diagnosed with Trisomy 18. And today we are talking with Adelyn's parents, Kat and Jeff, who will share with us an in-depth look into Adelyn's personality as well as her medical journey with Trisomy 18. Now, one of the words they use to describe her is feisty, and you will hear about how her feisty tone helped her into this world and how it has kept her going. Truly, with Adelyn, bravery knows no size. You will also hear about her sister Autumn and how incredible that relationship adds to their family dynamic. Leading this conversation is Josh Veach, our executive director of Go Shout Love, and you will also hear a little bit from Paige Mueller, our social media coordinator and a very talented photographer. Please take a second to rate, review, and share this podcast with your friends, families, and communities. It truly does make a difference.
Yes, Adelyn is 3.5, and she is feisty, tenacious, joyful.
Oh dear. Yeah.
Those are some of those 3 words that we would describe her as being.
Yeah.
Full of joy, full of life. Doesn't, like, she could have just spit up, and then like a second later she's smiling and laughing. Like, I don't understand how somebody can go through so much and be so much and so full of joy.
Yeah.
Yeah, she always has she always captivates people when they come talk to her or try to say something to her. You know, they'll try to hold her hand and she'll look over at them, you know, and so they always she always makes sure that she does a good job with her eyes tracking, you know, so people will come over to her and she'll look at them, and it's like, well, she can't say anything, you know, but she says, you know, her own kind of personality comes out with it. But
Yes, and she's an extrovert. She thrives around people. Her personality's been coming out even more since she's been home from the hospital. She is 100% loves to be around people. If she was at home sitting here by herself, she would just be like bored.
and most times she just will kind of go to sleep because there's nobody to hang out with.
Oh, she's bored.
Yes.
So does she get her extrovertedness from mom or dad?
Definitely mom.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
I remember that.
Yes. Me.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've introduced the kids. Now we're going to switch it up. And Kat, I would like for you to introduce your husband. Tell us a little bit about him, what he's like, what he enjoys. And then, Jeff, you're going to do the same.
Sweet. Okay, well, this is Jeff. He is my husband. We've been married for over 13 years. He grew up in a small town of South Carolina called 96, which is actually the name of the town. And so he went to a small church. It was kind of small, wasn't it? And he ended up in college. He ended up going to a college called North Greenville University, which is actually a private Christian university. And he decided to go there because the logo was like where Christ makes the difference. And that's what he felt like
And they had a soccer team.
And they had a soccer team. So he played soccer his whole growing up years, and then he played soccer in college. So he ended up getting his degree in youth and family ministry, and then went to seminary and got his master's in youth and family ministry. So his passion is definitely youth. He definitely loves to teach. He loves to, when he's not teaching, because he is an introvert, he has to be a professional extrovert at work because that's his job. Like he has to be, like he works with people. He has to minister to people all the time. So he is a professional extrovert, but when he gets home, he needs downtime because he's worn out. He gets tired, of course. He's fatigued. And so he loves to play board games, and he loves to build, work with his hands. That's kind of like his downtime. Like if he had that time, he said he always jokes around. He says, well, maybe in 2027 I'll get to that board game, but just because we're busy.
Sure.
So, but he does like doing that kind of stuff. He loves conversation, and he loves talking to people about, anything. And he loves like people that don't necessarily have the same view as him. He loves having conversation. He's not going to argue. He just loves to talk to people because too many people try to argue like their opinions, and he's like, I'm not about that. So it's just really neat to hear him talk, and even when he gets to preach or teach up at church, and he's just really a fun person to be around, and just very compassionate and very welcoming.
Awesome. Jeff, you have a lot to live up there. She just gave a full Wikipedia.
I know.
That sounded, I don't know if it's accurate or not because I'm just meeting you, but it sounded very
I hadn't had time to
accurate.
prepare that answer. So.
I know. I did that on purpose. I'm trying to throw you off a little bit. Okay, so now, Jeff, it's your turn to introduce us to your bride.
Well, this is Catherine, and I call her Cat. She goes by Cat. Teenagers we met working with students together, and the teenagers tried to match make us because they wanted her to be Cat Leopard, And so I was like, no. It was kind of funny because the first time we met, this is a fun story. I was heading out to play middle school football, and I was in control of like making sure they don't kill each other. And it was about 35 middle school boys that would just like play football. And so I had the football in my hand. I was leaving the office, and she come up and she was like, hey, isn't your name like Jeff Cougar? And I said, no, it's Leopard. And then I just kept walking. That was when we first, that was the initial face-to-face conversation.
The love at first sight moment.
I'm telling you, I was because I was not looking forward to going out because I had to calm down fights, every Wednesday night because they just love playing football. And so I was already envisioning that, so I was not in the mood. And then, then we got to work together at the retreat that weekend, and then we became friends, and such. So, so Catherine, she grew up in Conyers, Georgia, which is outside of Atlanta. She considers it Atlanta. And she grew up there. She has an older brother and a younger sister. So we're both middle children, and which has a lot of dynamics. And so my favorite thing about her first job, she sold Gatorade on Stone Mountain. It's like a fun, a tourist place. They hike up a mountain, and she sold Gatorade at the top, and that was a hilarious thing when I first met her. But she worked there, and then she served. She went to college and played volleyball, Valdosta State, and down in South Georgia, and then had the opportunity to go with the International Mission Board, and was a journeyman over in China. She worked 2 years with a people group over there who were kind of in the mountains of the Himalayas. And her and her partner, they would hike up the mountain and identify people and GPS it back to the office in Atlanta and say, there's a village up here. We got to bring Jesus, So they had a good, that was really cool. And then she went to seminary after that, and paid her way through seminary working at Outback as a waitress, which is amazing to deal with a lot of people like that. So we became closer friends there at seminary, and got married in 2010. And the adventure continues, is what we continue to say. And I would say now, what's awesome about Kat is her fitness. She's very passionate about being a fitness instructor. And she goes 5 days a week, 5 times a week. She teaches at a YMCA. And has a good following of people that come, and she likes to hang out with them afterwards, being a good extrovert. And she enjoys conversation with them. And she has a very good heart for, I would say, like other cultures. Like she has a lot of like Indian folk in her classes and such. And so some of the fun things we like to do together is eat at restaurants like Thai food, like we like having, let's go try this place, and so I would say some attributes about her is she's an encourager, so she likes to encourage other people, and this really came out more and more as I've got to know her and such. And then like 4 years ago, we didn't know that the Trisomy 18 world existed at all. We had like never heard of it. And then since we've been in this, I've seen her like message people, and a friend of a friend of a friend of a friend. My daughter's having, Trisomy 18 baby. We don't know what to do. And so they're like, oh, we know someone. And so like, through the avenue, Kat's able to text them and say, okay, do this. And when you go to the doctor, ask this question. And so I've seen her be able to encourage like other families who've going through a similar situation. And so Kat is very, I would use the word bubbly. That's a word. What?
It's definitely a word.
Thanks.
Yeah. She has she's bubbly. Is like a, I don't know, like a fun, a fun,
upbeat.
Yeah.
Likes to crack a joke once in a while.
Yeah. And I have a lot of dad jokes, yes. But I think that's kind of a. Did I miss something, honey?
No, you did
You
good.
both nailed it. That's awesome.
Tried.
Full Wikipedia
Yeah, for real.
bios.
No.
No.
Let's shift to because you mentioned the Trisomy 18. So
Sure.
let's jump to where life, as you kind of knew it, shifted about almost 4 years ago. You said Adelyn will be 4 in December.
Yes.
So, Kat, why don't you give us just a brief rundown of your pregnancy and the coming to understand that things weren't going as smoothly as what you would have hoped, and kind of what that journey looked like.
Thank you. Yes. After we had Autumn, I was already older, but I was only 33. So I was still under the geriatric pregnancy age, which is a horrible term.
Horrible.
So it's horrible. So I had her, and then after Autumn, when she was born in 2012, I couldn't get pregnant. And so I went to fertility specialist, and they said the only thing you can do is IVF. And so Jeff and I prayed about it. And we're like, we're not going that route. Like, that's not what we're going to do. We felt like maybe fostering or adopting would be an option. And then in 2019, we became pregnant. And I just turned 40. So I became the geriatric pregnancy lady. And we were very excited, and we were very shocked because we weren't expecting it.
Mm-hmm.
So our journey is I always wanted, to have, Jeff and I have multiple siblings, so we always wanted like 2 or 3, and that wasn't happening. So we were excited, and we got pregnant, and we hadn't announced to our families yet.
Right.
And then Autumn and I drove, we were living in Charleston, and Autumn and I drove home to Georgia. Jeff was on a mission trip with the students in Kentucky. And I was teaching fitness at the time, and I knew I was pregnant, but I hadn't told anybody. We were literally going to the doctor's office on Monday, and on that Saturday, I taught a fitness class, and all of a sudden I started bleeding, so I thought I had miscarried. Jeff was driving back, so I called him as we were going to the hospital, and I said, I really need you to find a way to get to Georgia instead of going home to South Carolina. So there was another adult that was driving the van, and so that adult drove, and he rented a car and drove. And so I just assumed it was a miscarriage. And this was on June 15th of 2019. And then when he got to the hospital, they had just told us, in fact, you're still pregnant. You're actually further along than we thought. And so we were like, okay, this was a miracle. Like, what in the heck? Like, I thought that we lost the baby.
There was a lot of blood.
Because there was a ton of blood. And then we didn't lose the baby. And so I was completely like, okay, well, this is a wonderful thing. But then 2 months later, when we went for our anatomy scan in August, they took like a really long time doing the scan. We were supposed to find out the gender. Autumn was with us, and then we found out the gender, but then a few minutes later, the doctor came in, and she had like this not so good look on her face, and that's when she said, well, we know you're having a girl, but there's some markers that we need to get looked at. So she had some markers that you had, and she didn't mention any term. She just said, you need to go to an advanced doctor tomorrow. I've already made an appointment for you. You need to go see what's going on. And so I was devastated. I was like, what in the world is going on?
We didn't sleep that night.
Yeah, we were supposed to be celebrating. And then the 3 markers that she said was I think it was clenched fists, a choroid plexus cyst, which is on the brain, and then 1 artery in the umbilical cord, which is called a SUA, which never heard of that, never heard of any of this.
Mm-hmm.
So we were like, so I had just happened to type in 3 of those terms, which I shouldn't have, in Google.
Try to tell her, don't be looking it up.
Because you know what Google does, they give you like the worst case diagnosis. Well, Google immediately said trisomy 18. And then the first thing it said was incompatible with life. So I freaked out, and I just like lost it. So then the next day we all went to the doctor together, and then this doctor who's from another country, and she came in and did the ultrasound herself. That was the longest ultrasound we've ever had. It was over an hour and a half.
Wow.
Almost 2 hours. Yeah.
Of the actual doctor.
Yeah,
doing
the ultrasound tech was in there for like 30 minutes, and then the doctor came in for like another hour.
They took over 100 pictures because they were trying to get like enough data.
Yeah.
And then we walked in she said, come to my office. And so all 3 of us went to the office, and she says, well, I have bad news. Your daughter has trisomy 18. She has all of these defects, heart defects. She's not going to make it. Would you like to terminate?
Mm-hmm. You have another 2 weeks in the state of South Carolina to terminate
at that
legally.
Time.
So they're like, sometime within the next 2 weeks you can. And so Kat's just like staring at the wall, like, I don't understand what's going on.
And this is literally the day after
you
had the original scan that was just supposed to, you thought it was just going to tell you if you were having a boy or a girl.
If you were a boy or girl, yeah.
Yes. So the next day we found out, and then Autumn was with us, and I immediately started crying, and I lost it. And the doctor doesn't have good table manners, like bedside manner, and she immediately said, she stopped talking. She's like, do you guys need to come back and meet another time when you can listen? And I was like, are you kidding me? Like, whatever I can't hear, Jeff will be able to hear for us.
Yeah.
Like, yes, I can't really comprehend things right now, but Jeff
So
Jeff
Kat
is there.
and Autumn kind of left the room and stood out in the hall, and I said, okay, what do we need to do? Like, I don't understand. What is trisomy 18? Like, what's the next step,
Yeah. But you guys knew, like, you weren't hearing trisomy 18 for the first time because you had just found that out
the day before.
Literally, like, you had found it out on your own.
And we Googled.
And you recognized that this is the worst case scenario.
Oh, yeah.
And then
we got the worst case scenario.
Found it exactly to be that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what kind of options did the doctor give you?
Great question.
Yeah, she said, well, the termination, and she said she's probably not going to make it. There's a huge percentage that she's going to pass away in utero, or if she is born, she'll be stillborn. And if she is born, she might not make it but a few hours. Like, she just kept like, if, and then she said, I said, well, we choose life. Doesn't matter. Like, we want to choose life. And she said, well, then you're going to have to go to somewhere else. And then she's like, go down to MUSC. They take advanced issues.
Meaning
The Medical University of South Carolina.
meaning that her
MUSC.
facility would not be able to provide you the level of care to
She
give her a
said-
chance.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly.
she said the only thing they could provide is comfort care,
Right.
which basically no intervention. And so I immediately responded with our background in seminary and just what I believe personally. I immediately, without breathing, said we're not going to terminate. That's not an option. We choose intervention. And so
Yeah.
that's when we said we would like to be transferred.
Yeah.
So she transferred us to MUSC.
MUSC.
We went home that night and in shock. I took a couple days off from the office, and Autumn was in school, and so like we were trying to kind of process
Sure.
things. And then we had a appointment. It was, thank you. We had an appointment that next week down at MUSC, and it was Dr. Campbell, I think is who it was, and we sat down with her.
Palliative care doctor.
Yeah, and she was 100% absolutely fabulous. And we sat down with her, and she said, listen, we here at MUSC, we are a trisomy friendly hospital. And I'm like, what?
There's a label for it.
Yeah, I was like, I thought it was like, every hospital is life friendly. But no, like, so it was like, she said, we are a trisomy friendly hospital. So, if you choose intervention, we can do these things. In the state of South Carolina, you can have hospice to where you can have care and full intervention. So you're not like hurting, with because sometimes when you choose hospice, like it's end of life and you
Right.
cannot get surgery, you cannot get any kind of help. So she's like, if you're under 21, you can, in the state of South Carolina, get this. And I'm like, okay. So she's given us 45 things. And
Yeah.
we're like, of hope.
Right.
She's giving us hope. She's like, if, we're hoping she does, and then, so that meeting lasted a couple hours, and she really helped us. I think that was like a huge benefit that the palliative care team was there, and she was giving us options, and she's like, okay, we're going to do another ultrasound next week. You're going to come back every 2 weeks. We're going to do another ultrasound. We're going to kind of walk through this. And if, her heartbeat is still there, we're going to keep moving forward. And we had to do something. She then assigned us to do what we call a birth plan. So I took that on because Kat said, I can't type. If she is stillborn, here's what we do. Kat's like, I just can't. So I said, I'll do it. So I kind of researched a little bit, asked a few questions online, looked. And so we typed up about a 3.5 page. If she does this is what we want. If she is stillborn, we like to have some pictures. If this is, so we had literally every scenario. Like if she can't breathe, we do want to get an intervention. If she can't eat, we do want intervention. You had to kind of spell it out, and then we put it in her file. And we went back every 2 weeks with the palliative care team, and it was a hopeful situation.
Yeah.
And we were like, how many trisomy 18 babies are born here? And she's like, a few each year, and most of them don't make it, but some do. Like, so we were like, okay.
Yeah.
And
It sounds like they were giving you a breath of fresh air
Oh.
while also fully preparing you for every possibility.
That's correct.
But also not ruling out best case scenario, but kind of giving you the tools to be able to navigate reality if and when things went south.
That is correct. And I thought that was a huge thing.
Yeah.
And like I said, we had never even heard of this world before.
Sure.
And the palliative care team was massive in that. That's one of the
Sorry.
That's okay.
I pushed the wrong button.
that's one of the first things that we tell people. One of the first things we tell people when we hear they have a trisomy 18 diagnosis, we say, find a palliative care team like at the local hospital. That is going to be huge for you, because they really helped us begin our journey down this road. And so we kept going back to her, and one of the guys there's a general surgeon that was at our church, and and he said he recommended us doing like some grief counseling, because he's like, you guys are already grieving her death. Like they were seeing that. He was noticing that in his like medical brain or whatever. He's like, you need to talk to somebody like about this. And so we started meeting with the lady once a month just because of our schedule. We met with her once a month over in Charleston, and she helped us. She was like, what'd she say? Like, don't do a nursery.
Don't do a nursery.
Because the worst thing is like to decorate, put everything, and then like she pass away. Then you're like, you know, she was giving us some, just be mindful that, you know, and then she was like, don't have a baby shower, have a celebration shower. And, you know, ask for like, you know, Amazon gift cards or like Walmart gift cards or whatever. Like, you can buy diapers and wipes and clothes, but if she passes, you can, you know, still get stuff for your family. Like she gave us, we're like, man, this stuff like never crossed our mind, you know? So she was huge in helping us think through it. What would you say, emotionally? And then she helped Autumn a little bit too, trying to kind of talk with her, and Autumn was trying to process it as well.
Sure. And Autumn would have been 7 at the time, 6 or 7.
Yeah. And so she was processing that, and which is difficult because Autumn wanted a little sister to play with.
Yeah.
And such. And so then up until, I guess you want to talk about like how was the,
That's okay.
got closer to birth.
Do you have any?
No, that's great. Yeah, let's go to actually getting to meet Adelyn and what that was like.
So we wanted to have her naturally, if at all possible. So they wanted us to induce at 38 weeks and 6 days. They did math, and because of her heart defects that they found, and because of other things, they said it's best not to wait till 39 or 40. Like, it's best if she can make it to like 38 weeks, that's great. And so she was actually born alive at 38 weeks and 6 days on December 17th of 2019.
And you pushed 3 times.
Yeah, it was like she was born 4 pounds.
No
and
big
7
deal.
Ounces.
Yeah, 4 pounds, 7 ounces. Yeah, so she was.
Yeah.
And the doctor, my heart, I was in the room, and I mean, she came out not breathing, and she looked kind of grayish. You know, I guess all babies when they're born, it's like, what in the world, you know? So they took her into the other room, and as she was leaving the room, she went like, like was like this little random noise,
Like a squeal.
and the nurse beside me, she goes, hey, we'll take anything, right?
Yeah.
We'll take anything. So,
Mom, what was that noise? How did that noise feel for you?
I was in shock that she was alive. Like, I was like, am I pushing out a baby that's going to make it? And then when she was born alive, I was just like in complete like cloud 9. I was like, are you kidding me? And then the NICU team, they let me hold her for a moment. And then the NICU team took her and did a full, you know, eval.
Yeah.
And I was able to go and stand behind the ladies, and she was kind of, her arms were kind of, you know, moving a little bit, and they were trying to figure out things. And one thing, praise God, from the palliative care team, they said, what we've seen in the past is Trisomy 18 babies cannot swallow. They won't swallow. So, you know, 20, 30 years ago, a Trisomy 18 baby would be in the NICU and, bloop, bloop, you know, the bottle, and they drowned.
Right.
Because they just didn't know. They just didn't, there was no genetic test. And so so we said to begin, part of our birth plan was if she's born alive, we want an NG tube put in. Just kind of like within the few hours, like just go ahead and
Make sure she can eat.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so because we saw like if you bypass the throat, then she can get her nutrients. So they said first, let's make sure she can breathe on her own. Let's get some oxygen, and then the NG tube. So I was in the other room, and they were assessing her and pushing on her, you know, and so then they put her in the little, I called it like the incubation chamber or whatever. Like they put them in the, you know,
Whatever that thing is.
you know, like the little plastic thing. Yeah, they put her in there, and they sealed it up, and then they rolled it out. They're like, we're going to go to like the OR and kind of, you know, insert tube, try to, see all these little things that we can't do in this room. So I was like, okay. Oh, that was an Adelyn snort. But
Yeah.
I think the hardest part was just not knowing. Like, she left the room, and I came back in the room, and I was like, Kat, she was moving. That's all I can tell you. She was moving. They left the room, and then we waited and waited.
Yeah.
And then she brought them. They brought her in the room, and she was in the little plastic thing, and had a very fun, first time seeing her. And Autumn saw her. We got a good picture of all three of us, and Kat's face is like so happy, and me and Autumn are looking, and you can see Adelyn like in the little glass thing, and so like it was a good moment, but it was a scary moment because now how many hours is she going to be here? So that's where we went into. So
you're hours in, and you're already seeing this fierce side of your daughter.
Right.
What's going on in your minds as you're realizing that not only has she surpassed the odds of making it, but she's doing well in these first minutes or hours?
I was ecstatic.
Yeah, it was.
I was ecstatic. Like, I was like, I don't know, like, everybody was like, you need to stay in the wheelchair. You need to stay in the wheelchair. And I was already ready to walk. Like, and you had to, like, MUSC is weird because you had to go, like, down the elevator and walk across the hospital and then go up the elevator to the NICU.
Yeah.
But I was like, I couldn't sleep because I just wanted to go see her in the NICU.
Well, and they've added on like 5 times, so they had to move departments around. So that was kind of why.
It was ecstatic. But then we got overwhelmed because everybody was meeting with us in the room. Like,
this is pre-COVID.
Like,
so
pre-COVID.
Like, we have people from church like what's
people
up?
just
And we're
show
like,
up.
oh, hey.
Yeah.
We didn't expect to see like 50 different people.
Yeah.
Like, no sleep, and everybody was like coming around, and like people didn't tell us they were coming, and
But they're
very-
probably also celebrating with
Yeah.
you
Of course,
because
they really were.
They
really
were probably
yeah.
preparing to grieve with you.
yeah,
Yes.
100%.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
To which some of them told us later, like we wanted to kind of be. We came and ate dinner in Charleston because we wanted to kind of be close because we didn't know
Sure.
if she had passed. We wanted to kind of be,
Yeah. I want to pause for just a second
Yeah.
and recognize that not everybody has that experience
It's true.
of people that are thoughtful and like prepared for that moment with you. And what was it like to know? I mean, obviously that's probably a little stressful when you've just given birth and all these other things are going on. You're still navigating the medical side of Adelyn's journey, but what's it like to, on the relational element, to recognize that in such a tough situation that could go either way, to have people like scheduling their day and their moments to make sure that they are trying to be as the friends that you need in that moment? What's it like to have that?
Well, to me, it's the beauty of the local church body is really what it is. And biblically, we're supposed to be, we mourn when others mourn. Mm-hmm. We're joyful when others are joyful, and the idea of just being in the ups and downs of other people. Because I was there for many folk as, on staff there at the church. I mean, I tried my best to be that to them.
Sure.
And so it was kind of like their turn for us, even though we didn't expect it or didn't know it. And it was a surprise, and it was hilarious because as one family would leave, I would sit in the chair, and then maybe 15 minutes, and we'd hear a knock, and like, oh, it's so and so, like, and then Kat would be like, that's great, I'm so glad they're here, and I am too. But it's just like,
It's a lot.
yeah, everybody that came, it was a lot, but it was a clear sign that they cared and such. And so it's huge. It's I deal with people quite often, over at the church who are homeless, or they have some type of issue in their life or addiction or something, and they're struggling, and they have no one to struggle with them.
Right.
And I try to tell them, like, you need to get like you need to get a part of like a local church. And I was like, you're welcome to come here, you know. Oh, I go to a church over there. I was like, well, when was the last time you went? You know, because like during these times is when these people can be there for you. And
It's like it's the epitome of doing life together. It's like
Exactly.
actually having people in your corner.
Exactly, because
Yeah.
there's going to be hard times. There's going to be curveballs. There's going to be tornadoes in your life. There's going to be trials, but there's also going to be joys as well. And so I felt it, and I know that you felt it.
Yeah, because it was extremely encouraging. They even had the church gathered that night that we were in labor and had prayer time the whole time we were in labor. So it's pretty remarkable that people would be willing to do that.
Yeah.
And it was ecstatic, and it was really encouraging. But then it was overwhelming. It was like I was struggling with joy, but also exhaustion from just having a baby, and them throwing hospice at us, and them wanting us to go home, and them telling us about heart defects and about her issues. And so it was wonderful, but it was also overwhelming at the time.
Yeah, because we went from, okay, she's here. Okay, how long is she here? I'm not sure. Okay, now we've got 25 things we've got to figure out.
Yeah.
And the first thing is we got to figure out what we're going to do with her heart. You know, and we're like, do we schedule it? Like, what if she passes away next week? You know, so we were like juggling that, like, we don't. So then they were like, the best thing for you to do is go home on hospice, you know, and we'll support you, we'll care for you. And so we were about 45 minutes from the hospital, something like that, maybe 50 minutes where we were at our house. And then we had we were in the hospital how long?
We were in the hospital for 6 days, and they tried to kick us out. Not kick us out, but they tried to tell us to go, you can go home. Well, after like 4 or 5 days, and I said, I don't know what I'm doing.
That's intimidating.
Are you kidding me? Like taking a medically fragile baby home, and it was very intimidating. And it was right before Christmas, so we actually took her home on the 23rd.
Yeah.
I had to like build up confidence, like you know how you have to like prepare yourself. So I had to like, okay, I can do this. No, I can't. I can do this. and then they're like, well, we will have a hospice nurse meet you at your house. When you get there. And so that was like, finally we built it up to go home. So we were actually able to be home at Christmas.
And your sister, Dawn,
crazy.
Her sister has really been huge. And her sister and her sister's husband, Jeff, they're in the medical field, and they've been huge even before she was born, like helping us think about, like when I was doing the birth plan, I was like, Dawn, what should I, you know, she's like, okay, well, let's think about this. And so Dawn was like, I think it would be good to have Christmas with her because you don't know how long you're going to have her.
Right.
So take her home, have Christmas at the house, pictures, the trees there, you know, like, you know, enjoy that time. And Kat was like, that makes a lot of sense. Let's do that. So that was kind of what I think helped us.
A little courage
home.
to tipping point for you. Yeah. That's awesome.
So we were home, and Christmas came, and then the New Year came, and we're talking January of 2020.
Yep.
So pre-COVID
right before the
still.
storm.
And then we're like, okay, you know, this and that. And we basically took a week at a time, you know, a day at a time. But like the nurse would come like on a Wednesday, like in the afternoon.
The hospice nurse.
Yeah, the hospice nurse.
We would have all the hospice people come to our house.
Yeah, she'd come on Wednesday and she'd check her vitals and she'd say, okay, she's breathing good. Like, you know, and we're like, what do we do like on Thursday at 2 a.m. if something goes wrong? And she's like, call this number. So we had a number that we could like, in case something happens, call this number. Basically, it will notify the hospital that, you know, the ambulance will come and the hospital will know you're on the way, and they've already got her records, so they know her issues. And so we're like,
but at this point, you're still looking to like,
oh man,
you're on borrowed time. If you will.
sure, of course, Christmas had happened. We're in the new year now, and then April came.
Well, we were seeing the cardiologist every other week. We were seeing like multiple doctors, all like hospice social worker, the counselor, a chaplain, a child life specialist was spending time with her, and it was all going well. We were having people that were coming to us weekly, supporting us.
And we were being very guarded, like you're saying, like do we want to smile? Do we want to be joyful about this?
Yeah.
Like, you know, that was kind of our,
The phrase that I say now is that, or I've said for a long time, is grief and joy coexist.
yeah, we learned that does.
That happened. Like, we were joyful that she was with us, but we also were grieving, like, how long do we have with her?
Yeah, and we
But you're recognizing that there's like risk involved
Yeah.
in allowing yourself to
Yeah.
be hopeful.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
And so then we had the sweet old ladies at church. She's got her 10 fingers and her 10 toes. And we're like, yes, but there's a lot more to it than that.
Complex layers underneath,
Yeah,
yeah.
they're just seeing it from, you know,
Some
because
people
no one
don't
had
know
ever
what
heard
to say.
Trisomy 18 even at our
Sure,
church. Like,
yeah.
they had not experienced this realm. And so she didn't go to church at all. She did not leave the house other than to go straight to the doctor, straight back.
And this was pre-COVID.
Yeah.
And then on April 2nd,
April 2nd.
like, you know how the world kind of started, like, they canceled schools
In March.
like in mid-March. I think it was pretty much all around they were canceling. And then all of the doctors' appointments were canceled.
Yeah, they were like,
All of the hospice nobody from hospice. I'm sorry, I'm loud.
No, you're fine. No, you're great.
So you went from having a bunch of care at the
Right.
house
Oh,
to
yeah.
all of a sudden
Zero.
just nothing.
literally, it became me and Kat.
Yes, and we didn't have anybody from the church because nobody wanted to get near us because it felt like it was a apocalyptic, you know, like it was just like, what
They were being
is
respectful.
the world coming to
They were
an
like,
end?
we don't really want to come over because what if my sniffle
Right.
would send Adelyn to have pneumonia? Like, we don't know.
Right.
And so everybody was canceled, like everything was canceled, and we were home alone by ourselves. And then I heard like some weird sounds in her belly, and I called the hospice, and I'm like,
No, yes, what happened? Okay, I'm sorry to cut you off, honey, but
it's okay. No, I want to say something,
ahead.
and then you can correct me if I'm
no, go ahead.
wrong. I heard weird things, and I told the hospice nurse about it, or the hospice team, and they're like, "Don't worry about it, it's fine." And then on like April 2nd, I think that night, she was not breathing well. You can go from there.
Oh, it's fine. We had the pulse ox on her, so like she was dropping. Okay, she had normally dropped, but then I kind of reposition her. So then she kept dropping. So then I did the glider. We had this glider in the other room, and the glider, I could always get her calm. I could always rock her to get her calm. Well, then after about 30 minutes of her still dropping, still not being calm, it's like 6 o'clock in the morning at this time, 5 o'clock in the morning. And her breathing was like that. And I was like, this is interesting. So we called the hospice number, the nurse who was on call. And I said, I don't think she's breathing kind of normal. So then she called our like doctor person, I guess.
It was the hospice doctor.
Yeah, the hospice doctor. And then she said, put it on speakerphone. She listened to her for about 5 seconds. And she goes, yeah, she's got something in her lungs. You need to take her like to
No,
MUSC.
she told us to call 911.
Yeah, so we called 911 and had to explain over the phone, we have a medically fragile baby and we need to get to MUSC. And then we called a friend from church who came over and picked up Autumn. And I got in the ambulance and I held the mask on her so that her breathing, because if you took the mask off, she was like in the 70s, like it just
Scary.
yeah, and then she would like pop up and then she'd stay in the 70s. We're like, this is not good. So I put the mask on her and she would go up into the 90s. So then we got to MUSC. And we're in the ED and
We're like, it's like a ghost town.
there was nobody there.
Nobody
because
was there.
This is like
Pediatric-
COVID just started.
pediatric.
Shut down.
It started. And so, yeah, so we're there and they're all in like their full bunny suits and everything. And they're reading instructions of like, wash your gloves, throw your gloves away, put on another pair of gloves, wash those gloves, you know, like what? Because they were trying to be COVID stuff. And so they're like, well, her short of breath, we really don't know what's going on. So then they did an x-ray and realized, 60% of her intestines are in her
Lungs,
chest cavity because she had a diaphragmatic hernia and it like all her intestines like were coming up and so she couldn't breathe because
All that pressure
it was
on
pushing.
the bottom of her lungs. Yeah.
Exactly. And so they're like, we're going to have to do surgery. And we're like, oh dear, because that means put to sleep means may not wake up.
Right.
And so we're like, oh boy. So we kind of processed that and said, okay, you do what you got to do. And we were wanting them to go from the NG tube to the G tube. but she had to be a certain amount of weight before they would do that. And she was within like half a pound. So the surgeon was like, listen, I'm going to be cutting right there. We'll do the repair. We'll put her G-tube in. She's only asleep once. And I'm like, that's a win.
Yep.
So he's like, all right. And he's like on the phone through a glass door because COVID is kind of like attacking everything. So that was April like 2nd or 3rd, something like that. And then she has the surgery that day. Like she went into the OR like that day.
It was immediate emergency.
Yeah, it was emergency. So she went in and we just were kind of waiting for an hour or two. And Autumn she was with friends. So we're like,
and
know.
I was like, it was before they had the rapid COVID test. So they still had to test her to see if she was positive for COVID, but it didn't come back immediately. So we were put.
Yeah, we couldn't
leave the room, and I had a full bunny suit on, and I was trying to like pump because I was pumping.
Goodness.
Because we were
it was
feeding
a sight
her
to see.
breast milk through the
goodness.
NG tube,
Yeah.
through
Yeah.
a pump.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
Man.
But the doctor said, well, she's once again surprised us. She's recovered better
Yeah, so
than we thought she would.
Yep.
So you went from,
gosh,
we're not sure if she's even going to survive the surgery, to
so she survived
she's fierce. That
Fierce.
fierceness is
Fierce
continuing
again.
to show up.
again.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then what's interesting is then we're watching the TV and the governor comes on and goes, South Carolina is now stay-at-home state of emergency. So we're like, oh, this is fun.
Yeah.
As if you didn't already have enough on your
So they're
plate.
like, nobody's allowed to go, because they were like, it was shutting down. Like it literally was. And so the people that were, that Autumn was hanging out with, they're like, what do we need to do about this? And so Autumn went to a different house. And
She was thrown around to different houses.
yeah, she was trying to because we were trying to take care of her. And then Adelyn was in the hospital for what?
She was in the hospital for less than a week. Like,
Less-
it was
yeah.
crazy.
That's amazing.
But we couldn't find food. Like,
Right.
it was before food was... The hospital cafeteria was closed. There was absolutely
and
nothing.
even restaurants in the area.
Oh, yeah, because you couldn't do DoorDash or anything then because they were not even bringing
Right.
anything to you. So what was...
I think we did...
We raided a few vending machines in the hospital. And we
finally found people that would deliver food, though.
yeah, and then we had some friends from church. They brought they left it beside our car in the parking deck because they're like, you're not supposed to touch and see.
Right. Man.
Yeah,
So-
all the unknowns. That was crazy.
So I told the nurse, I've got to go out and get something from the car. And she's like, okay, well, make sure you wash this and do this. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I went and grabbed the groceries. So we were able to kind of eat and such. But then we got home and the hospice continued. We were able to continue and she was able to continue to thrive. And surprising people. I guess you want to fast forward to...
well, I think he may want
sorry.
to break and have a question. I don't know.
Well, yeah, I want to come back and get an update on, from the medical standpoint, what went, give us a brief update from there to where we are today. But I want to pause for just a second because I think even now we're 3 years removed from that weirdness of all the things shutting down, and
yes.
some of it being maybe overkill, but some of it definitely being effective in, being careful for especially the most fragile among us.
Sure.
But we're recognizing that on top of the medical and scientific elements of dealing with COVID, there's emotional and mental elements that went along with the shutdowns and all those other things.
Huge.
And I'm curious for you guys in that situation, have you seen, or even did you know in the moment, how much that was impacting your lives in what was already a stressful moment of dealing with the fragile nature of Adelyn's situation, to then also the relational and mental health elements of that season?
Yeah, I started struggling with anxiety, which I had never had before. And I'm an extrovert, and the fitness gyms were closed down. Our church was closed down. We were literally isolated, and introverts may have loved it, but it was a miserable experience for me because I had no adult interaction. Nobody would come near us because of our medically fragile baby. So I started taking a turn for the worst, and after the hospitalization, because we were even more isolated when they did all that shut down, and nobody would come near us, and there wasn't a light at the end of the tunnel, so we had no idea.
Yeah, we didn't know.
So I really struggled. I couldn't work out, and I don't work out well by myself. I like people. I like and people motivate me. So I'm not like one of those self-motivators that'll stay at home and just do my own workout. I like to be with others. That gets me motivated. And so I didn't have that. I didn't have anything. So mental health has been a struggle, and I still am in that. I still struggle because every time we hear beep or something, I'm like, huh. Like if is she hot? It like we go into that. I'm in that constant fight or flight mode, and so I'm just like always firing those neurons. I'm not medical, but just I'm always like going, like I'm always in that tense situation, and it's hard for me to calm down. So it's been, the mental health aspect has definitely been a struggle, and still a struggle even though things are open up. I'm an extrovert, but being at home with her is definitely, I don't get to talk to adults except for doctors much.
Yeah.
So.
And you guys we're an hour and a half and change outside of Atlanta, where you live now. But the story you've been telling is that we were in South Carolina at the time. So
Yeah.
tell us how that transition happened, and to what degree navigating some of that stuff may have played into that.
Yeah. So the mental health aspect, I told Jeff, in that like after it was like in May, I said I can't live here anymore. My dad was diagnosed with ALS. My mom was recovering from cancer that they were both diagnosed at the same time, and we couldn't go there. My dad would never meet Adelyn because he was stuck, in a wheelchair in another state. And I said, I can't do this anymore. We've been here for 8 years at this church. We've served well. It's time for us to resign.
Oh,
and
well, we love the people. We still love the people there, but it was like, with COVID, like it added that extra element of no support. Now the people cared about us, but like we weren't. I mean, you couldn't get, versus like being around family.
Right. It was more difficult to give and receive practical everyday care because of the isolation that's been implemented. Yeah.
So we went to I think the key to me was we went to the cardiologist back when they were allowing us to start a few appointments. And this was around
April,
end of May,
April, May, something like
about
that.
May, and he was like, "We need to be thinking about her heart surgery. If she makes it to this pound, she's getting close. If she makes it to this pound, huge percentage her heart's not gonna beat,
Can't support it."
And so he said, "We've got to think about heart surgery." And I was like, "Okay." And I looked at him and I was like, if it's your daughter, who you want cutting on you? Who you want cutting on her? And he said, we got a lot of great people here. But he said, over in Choa in Atlanta, he said, they've got some fabulous pediatric surgeons. And he said, I know a guy over there. So he like emailed him or whatever and said, hey, I've got this family. Would you consider, and he said, actually, I would not. He said, I don't mind doing it, but there's like my teacher, Dr. Cantor, he's like, he is the one that you want to go to. So we're like, okay. And so we're sitting down at this dinner table with her family. They had come over, and we were in the South Carolina. Her brother and sister came to kind of be with Adelyn because we didn't know. So we're sitting there at the table, and I'm kind of like sad. And her brother looks at me. He's like, how's things going? I know COVID's kind of ruined them. And I said, well, man, like Adelyn needs to get her heart surgery, And so, but we probably want to do it in Atlanta. And he said, well, if y'all move, you can work. He owns a computer IT company up in Dahlonega, which is about 20 minutes from here. He's like, you can work for me. And I said, okay. And then her sister was like, you can live in our basement. And I was like, income and shelter and Adelyn care. And I was like, okay, God, the puzzle pieces seem to be coming together.
Yeah.
So we had a plan, and we felt like God kind of like orchestrated it, and we're like, okay. So I went to the church council and was like, I'm going to have to step away and such. And they understood, and they were, they saw the situation, and I explained it to them. It's Adelyn needs care. We need to be around family and such. And so we moved
in July and August of 2020.
And so we started packing up, and we moved in July. Yeah, that's right, July. Because my last Sunday was like August 3rd of 2020. August 3rd or August 4th was my last Sunday there at the church, and they had moved over. And with Adelyn, we had to we had all her stuff. We had like a little generator in the car with like all her stuff plugged in, because she's like being moved like 6 hours.
Yeah.
So we had to make sure, and on the way, do we need to stop in Augusta at the hospital? We got this address. So we got to her sister's house, who is the nurse, and her husband's a nurse too. And they're in our basement. We can be helpful. We were going to meet with Dr. Cantor and find out, the timing and all that. And so what really hurt a lot in our hearts and emotionally was we never got to say goodbye to the church.
Yeah.
We were there for 8 years, loved a lot of people. They had like a drive-by with COVID. They had a drive-by, cars in front of our house, and we just waved, we got to see people.
Not the same as
but
giving hugs
normally, yeah, it's like you have a dinner and you get to hang out, you share some memories, it's a meaningful thing, but we just didn't have that. And so that was so hard. The closure there was ripped.
Yeah.
And
it's its own type of grief.
Oh my gosh.
That was grief, because we had sacrificed and done so much in that community and in that church. And then we couldn't say goodbye. Now,
some people did say goodbye to us over the phone, when they said, and we were able to kind of, the last service I preached, and then they gave me a blanket with all our different T-shirts that we had done, and they gave us a little book. It's sitting over there. They gave us a little book with some memories and such. So it was, they tried to get, but it wasn't but there was 12 people in the sanctuary. Everybody else was online.
Right.
So it was just it wasn't the same. So that was really difficult to navigate that. So then we're in the basement now of Dawn's house in Cumming, and I'm driving up to Delanago working IT, and trying to figure out, I've always been a nerd and a geek, and I love, computers and such. And so I always just kind of trial and error figured it out, and being kind of, technology guy. And so when I was working with her brother, I had to learn a whole new skill set. And then Kat was 100% calling doctors, visiting, her sister would kind of ride with her to the hospital or whatever. And then we tried to get home health care nurses. Mm-hmm. So we got a couple of them. They were only able to be there, 10 hours a week or something. And hospice, not hospice, but Medicaid. I always get them confused.
Medicaid is for...
Thank you, honey. Medicaid, she had 70 hours of approved time where a nurse could come, but we had 10 filled because of...
It's a nationwide problem.
Nurse slackage. But
home health care is not paid enough.
So anyway, we were there and met with Dr. Cantor, and he says this. He said, she had tetralogy of Fallot.
TOF.
Yeah, so they call it TOF. So there's 4 issues going on with the heart, which is tetra. Okay. And so he said, I've done 1,000 of these surgeries, he said, and I've done 5 trisomy 18s. Mm. And he said, I can repair her heart, but it's up to her to recover. And we're like, where do I sign? Because I trust this guy. He's done 1,000 of these, and he's done 5 specifically. I was like, oh yeah, I'm glad this is the guy we're coming to. Yeah. So we made the right call to come to CHOA to make the move. Then it was in October.
It was in October of 2020.
You want to talk about the surgery?
Yeah. Well, we can.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. It was, she was supposed to have it in September, but they had all the pre-op appointments. We found out that she had a cold the day before her surgery. Well, they canceled that, and I grieved that because I'm like, well, because I was just starting to get back into teaching fitness classes. Yeah. And so I had to cancel that and then I had to basically cancel what I had just started. And then we had already booked a hotel room at the hospital.
I took off the week.
And he took off the week, so it was like we had prepared and then they canceled it.
Yeah.
So I grieved. I was sad because I'm like, this takes a lot of preparation.
Sure.
So then
Well,
they
there's
moved
probably
it.
a certain sense of like, this is going to help fix a lot, and
Yes.
like it's almost like a milestone that you
Yes,
can kind of
exactly.
celebrate. And
Exactly.
Yeah, so I wasn't looking at working I wasn't really looking at a lot of positions and teaching. I wasn't looking for a lot of classes to teach at the time because I was waiting for her to get through it. So then I had to put it off for more
Sure.
time.
Yeah.
So she did have it on October 20th of 2020, and she was in there for 8 days, and they all said, the cardiac anesthesiologist, the surgery lasted for over 8 hours. They had to go back in because the pulmonary valve or whatnot was still too thick, and that would have caused problems. So he went back in. So it took like over 8 hours, which was really long. And then the cardiac anesthesiologist came in, which is a thing. I didn't know that there was a difference. But she said, oh, yeah, she has a difficult airway, and as she gets older, it's going to become more difficult. You should consider jaw distraction surgery. And that was when she was only 10 months old.
wow.
And so I said, okay, thanks for letting me know. And she recovered beautifully. Like, she had moments, of course, but she was only in the hospital for 8 days. And the doctor, by the end of the time we were there, he was like, well, she has proved me wrong. She's recovered a lot quicker than we thought she would.
She has proved a lot of people wrong
Yeah.
from those first couple days.
Yep. So she came home and has been
So
remarkably doing better since, at that moment. But then cardiac was no longer the issue. Her heart was repaired beautifully. It was the big issue that was starting was her oxygen and her airway.
right.
And when she would get a cold, she would get hospitalized. Then it became more often, like more frequently, and it became where it was just she would go into respiratory failure.
And so all connected to the thing that anesthesiologist recognized is that this is going to become your next problem, and she was right about that.
Right.
And you guys recently had a surgery to then do the same surgery that she said you were the one to consider.
Well, I had asked the ENT doctor after the cardiac anesthesiologist told us. I asked him when I saw him that later, like a few months later, and I said, "Would you please consider jaw distraction surgery?" And he said no, and he said she doesn't need it. We don't want to go in that invasive. I'd rather be conservative. And I said, okay, so I pushed for it in 2021, and he denied it. So that was discouraging. But I went with him because I just agreed with him because, well, he's a doctor. Maybe he knows more than what I do. I was kind of pulling for that jaw distraction. He said, no, let's wait. And then we waited.
And I would say in 2022, she was in the hospital for a week every 2 months. So that took a mental, emotional toll on our family of like,
Sure.
okay, here we go, back down to, and it was
mostly always connected to
always
airway.
Yeah, always.
Because what would happen? She has a 7 millimeter airway. So just like me and you, we get a cold, you get some snot in there, you just get rid of it.
Sure.
She can't do that. Like she doesn't have muscles there to do that. So just think about the snot just like hanging out in your throat.
Right.
Well, now how are you gonna get the air around that?
Right.
Yes.
So then it like the pulse ox would beep, beep, like
Yeah.
she's not breathing well, so I'd have to get the oxygen on her, and then it would get to where like she'd get a fever.
Yep.
And then we're like, okay, pneumonia is gonna set in if we don't get to the hospital.
So you had a year of data that says this thing that we asked for a year ago
That's correct.
actually is needed.
yes.
Yes.
And so then you were able to get that scheduled for
Well,
this year, right?
No, we never. It wasn't scheduled.
Oh.
It wasn't scheduled. When we went into the hospital, we had been in the hospital every month, September, October, November, December for it, and then in January she was hospitalized again.
Right.
And that's when they intubated her, and on the
Right.
14th, and that's when a few hours later, the ENT met with the plastic surgeon, and I never even told her that I really wanted her to have it. She came in with the surgeon and said, "You've got to have this surgery."
Like today.
And I said this 2 years ago.
Yeah, that's frustrating.
Well, a beautiful thing about the stay, Just the way my brain thinks. I think, God orchestrates so many things that we kind of miss. And so whenever she was going to be intubated, 3 different teams tried to get down her throat. And they're like, nope, can't do it. Next team, nope, can't. Like, she's getting to where, like, this is
She was
not
at
good.
the end of a long code.
Like, the code was bad. And so they're like, we're just going to do the on-call ENT. And so they called her. So I see this, I'm sitting out in the lobby because they're like in the room freaking out. So I see this lady run by me in like, street clothes or whatever. She runs by me. And then about 30, 40 minutes later, she comes back out and she goes, "Are you Mr. Leopard?" And I was like, "Yes, ma'am." She's like, "Well," she said, "I used to work at Boston University, which is a trisomy friendly hospital."
Mm-hmm.
And she said, 17 years ago, there was a trisomy 18 baby that had difficult airway, and I used this not in the textbook technique to basically save her life. And she said, I used that technique with Adelyn tonight. She said, last time I used this was 17 years ago.
Wow.
And so I was like, wow, she was on call. Like, God used the hospital scheduling to really save her life, because like the 3 teams had tried. Like, it was like, we're not going to do any more. And then she comes in and she's like, however, it's not a textbook one. So within the next 24 hours, we need to go in the OR and put like a real one down in there and make it stronger and more, what's the word? Make it where it'll stay longer or whatever. So they did that. They went in the next day and she was there. And what did she say about the tools and such?
Oh, yes. And then, so since that situation happened, because what happened was that she ran, it was in the middle of the night, and she literally parked her car in the front and said, who cares if it gets towed, like, I'm going. She ran up the stairs, and then the ICU room was not equipped with all of the proper equipment for a difficult airway. So since Adelyn's situation back in January, they've updated the rooms in this hospital with better equipment for intubation.
To be better equipped for a moment like that.
Yeah.
So it's almost like finally got to the point where your attempt at the Band-Aid fixes is not going to work.
Yeah.
Right.
It's time to do the right thing.
Right.
And so the surgery that you'd asked for in 2021, or asked for it to be considered, tried to push for, finally out of absolute necessity was done. And that was in beginning of this year.
That's correct.
Yes.
That was in January of this year.
Yeah. And that you were saying earlier before we started recording that has completely changed her path.
Oh my gosh.
And given her an opportunity to breathe more regularly, and I would assume then when she does have a sniffle, better be able to handle that and
Right.
all those things.
And we've got behind you there's the suction machine there. When she does have a sniffle, because of her airway, we can actually
Help
get
her out,
in and it's, we don't have to go to the hospital.
Yeah,
Yes, you want
that's
to keep
amazing.
her home.
Right, yeah.
I'm
So
sure
we
that's
can
very nice.
eliminate like that trip, where that's really what they would do is they would have to suction her every 4 hours to keep the snot out. But they had to take like you had to be a respiratory therapist.
It was
doing
a deep suction. It wasn't like just like the
Yeah.
superficial stuff that we can do at home.
So we can
Because she was
prevent.
getting stuff stuck down there.
Yeah.
So then
What I was gonna say that with the mental health aspect, it's also affected Autumn. And so last year when we were getting hospitalized so much, I was having to stay in the hospital a lot, and so Autumn was dealing with separation anxiety.
Sure.
So the mental health aspect, like when you think about choosing life for your child, you don't think about how it affects everyone. Like, I just didn't think about that. So it's affected her. And she's been diagnosed with anxiety as well. And so she sees a counselor, and it's been really helpful. So we have literally all been trying to recover from that situation. We're all just struggling with anxiety from being there for 3 months. And now we're trying to get back to a normal kind of, a weird normal way of life.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's been helpful for her to talk to a counselor
Sure.
as well.
Yeah.
And so we don't doubt that there's a reason for that, and we think that that's going to help her in the future. But we also have seen, like, for the last year, she won't sleep with anybody else. She has to even stay in our bedroom with us. We have her like on a little cot because she won't stay in her own room. So I've been told that's common with like medically fragile kids. The siblings are affected in that way. But that's definitely like the whole mental health thing is huge all around. It's affected all of us.
Yeah.
To where we, a few weeks ago, Adelyn had a little sniffle, and Kat was like, Jeff, Adelyn's got a little sniffle. I think we need to, suction. And Autumn was in the other room, and she came in and she goes, "You're not going back to the hospital, are you?" Oh. And I said, "No, honey, no, we're going to do the suction. It's going to be fine." And then Kat looked at me like, man, like Autumn was in the other room and she heard the possibility of going back to the hospital and just like sent her
It's like full PTSD type of thing.
PTSD.
Exactly.
100%. And it was struggle. The hardest point that I had was when Adelyn was in the hospital for 3 months. My dad was in hospice that whole time. He was put in hospice right before she was hospitalized. Yes. So I was going back and forth. We were going back and forth between Adelyn and Dahlonega, which is like an hour north from the hospital too, and making sure that Autumn is doing well in dance and her activities. And so it was really difficult. And then my dad passed away on April 2nd, right? And so she was discharged on April 13th. So the funeral was the next weekend on April the 9th. And so she was discharged a few days later. Well, I didn't really hit rock bottom till I got home because I was still focused on taking care of her and advocating for her because she wasn't being treated right by some of the people there. And so I was still advocating. And so when I got home and I was here, that's when it all
of the weight. You felt all of the weight. Yeah.
Yeah. So my mental health, the worst, like I was having to be strong for her in the hospital. But then when I came home, that's when I kind of fell apart. So it took me some time to recover. And our marriage, it hurt our marriage. Because we were basically living apart from each other for 3 months. Like we would literally be passing each other on the interstate.
On the phone. It was like, I see you.
I love you. We would have to switch places because one of us would have to get her from school. Yeah. And then one of us needed to be with Adelyn.
Well, and in the midst of all this, July of last year, I stopped the IT work and was able to go on staff here at our church just a mile from here as a student pastor because that's my heart and my passion. But I didn't think I could do it again because of her and what was going on and things. And we didn't know the future and mental abilities and such. And I hit some burnout when I was in South Carolina. So we had a lot of things going on there. And so it was a blessing to be able to step into that role because she kept going to the hospital. And I was able to take my laptop and work at the hospital and still get done what I needed to do. Whereas with the IT, I'd have to be like in somebody's office, working and like remote sessions and such. And so it was a blessing to where I could be, doing what I needed to do, keeping up with my job, but I was salary to where I didn't have to clock in. I could be there with her.
Gave you the opportunity for presence, while still being able to do what you need to do for work.
Exactly. Yeah. And so I was still able to teach. I was still able to do everything I needed to do. But, so 2 nights I would spend at the hospital and then Kat would spend the other 5. Yeah. And so that's kind of how we kind of
and that's not
worked it.
That's not a sustainable model for marriage, for parenting, for any of those things. It's
for
not ideal.
Eating,
right.
And they were like, "Oh, you could go home," and I'm like, "Well, yes, but there's so many things that I saw that were like I'm not like a micromanager, but they weren't doing things right, and they weren't giving her. They weren't doing the best job,
and you know your child best.
Yeah."
Right.
Yeah, trust that gut intuition. I feel like it can definitely be intimidating when you have medical doctors that have gone to school telling you, no, she doesn't need this certain surgery, or it's good, you can go home. But there's something inside of you that you want to stay there with her. Yeah. And there's always a reason why.
Yeah,
sure.
Exactly.
That's a good point. And to piggyback on that, that's a great point because one of our strongest advocacy, if that's a word. advocating statement is we want to change the textbooks because the textbooks say Trisomy 18 incompatible with life. Well, we want to say Trisomy 18 compatible with life upon intervention. And we've got like several universities are sending us these packets in the mail, and we fill out these surveys because they're like, you have a Trisomy 18 baby still alive after the first year. We want to have some data.
Right.
Because we don't have this.
Yeah.
And we're like, well, really, like her surgery went well. Like she's feeding, like she's doing her normal thing. And it's really because we decided to do the intervention, to do the therapy, to do the NG tube, to go to the G tube, we did our, and then some doctors or nurses there would be like, oh, Trisomy 18, we all know what that means. It's like, we don't really need to care for her like everybody else. And it's like, no, we want to change the textbooks to say that. And what really started me on that was the geneticist in Charleston. He was like in his 60s. He was an old geezer. It was hilarious. He was so funny. He was like cracking jokes the whole time he was hanging out with us. And he like went over to Adelyn and he's like, see this right here? See her hand? See how it's clenched like that? He's like, well, hers is not, because we did the braces, and so they were able to.
But they were at birth.
Yeah.
They were at birth, and so he's like, that's what happened. I'd go in the NICU and I'd see that hand, and I'd be like, quit the bottles. Like he would like, that was how he recognized it. And so he's like, think about
Because they weren't swallowing.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. He was like, what's going on with this baby?
Yep.
And he's like, this has got he could see the clenched fist and know exactly. He's like, we didn't have blood tests back then in the 60s.
He all went by visual.
Yeah.
So he said what the Down syndrome, which is trisomy 21, what Down syndrome was like back in the 50s. It was like this, just take them home and figure it out. He's like, that's kind of trisomy 18 today. And so he said, as we do intervention, as we do things, as we realize data can be collected, they can thrive. They can, get nutrients through the G tube. They can, have the heart surgery and recover. They can go through all these things and live upon intervention. And so the reason why it was incompatible with life is because people would give birth and they would go home, and then they would die literally hours later because there was no intervention, or they were only offered comfort care.
And now there's trajectory for positive momentum because there's cases like this where you find the right team that will help you prepare for all the scenarios, give you the tools, and then actually take the chance on procedures that can be life-changing.
So there's doctors at CHOA who are not trisomy friendly. They're just like, sorry, man. And there's others who are like, I'd like to, let's try it. Hey, why not? Let's do it. And so we just say, we want trisomy 18 babies to be treated just like any other kid, except with a few caveats, like they need to be able to breathe, they need to be able to eat. They need to, some need like the hernia surgery and stuff, like offer them the intervention and then let them recover, like let them fight, let them be feisty, let them. And so that's kind of what we try to say is like, we want to change the textbooks to say you can, like, and he was like, he's right. Like, so let's say 50 years from now, there's trisomy 18 babies who are, able to, like the Down syndrome kids now. We have many friends that we have this one awesome girl at church. I see her all the time. I talk to her, she loves, like when we do VBS, she'll get up on the stage and do the motions and stuff. Like, she's awesome, and it's because, like her parents, it was intervention. Yeah. So Down syndrome was not a death sentence. Right. It was like in the 50s. Yeah. So that's kind of like
they're like retiring. Like they're getting to the age of retirement.
So that's one kind of we try to say as we have opportunities like this, or opportunities to talk to other people or such, we try to get them to understand, like, let's change the textbook. Yeah.
Yeah, and I always, my go-to phrase for people when I talk to them and advocate for them, is I always tell them, I said, it's better to grieve than to regret. Like, because we have loved her, and the longer we're with her, we love her, more and more. But I would much rather grieve a loss of someone that I cared for deeply than regret not giving her a chance.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you guys sharing so honestly, especially on the mental health element, that That's the real raw life of a family with a child on a rare medical journey. And you guys have given us a beautiful picture of that. And for those listening, you didn't get to see Adelyn just wake up from a excellent nap in Dad's arms and just stretch real big and share the biggest smile. And to think that the world almost doesn't get a chance to enjoy that light would be heartbreaking. And so it is so cool that you guys have advocated so well for her, and that obviously her built-in fierceness and drive has not only given her joy, but has brought joy to you guys and so many others. And so we are really grateful that you've given us the chance to experience that and to share her story with the world. And so thank you. And we're really looking forward to shouting love for her and your family all month long. So thank you guys.
Thank you so much.
We appreciate it. Thank you.
At Go Shout Love, we do amazing things for amazing families with kids on rare medical journeys. Each month, we shout love for families through the sale of creative apparel inspired by the kids. This month's Bravery Knows No Size design is inspired by Adelyn, a feisty and tenacious girl from Dawsonville, Georgia, who maintains a joyful spirit while facing each day with bravery. Every purchase in September will go toward the cost of a screened-in back porch that will allow Adelyn time outside, something that is not currently possible because of her extreme sensitivity to light. Visit our website at goshout.love to support Adelyn through the purchase of a t-shirt, hat, tank top, hoodie, or other items.